Pennsylvania's coal, iron, oil, and steel built the backbone of industrial America. But hidden across this state are 11 communities most people have never heard of. Places that were erased, drowned, seized, condemned, or left to burn beneath the earth. From forgotten mining settlements reclaimed by forests to towns submerged under government reservoirs, this countdown reveals what happens when progress decides a community is expendable. Each entry carries a deeper level of loss, building toward a place where the ground itself still burns. We begin at number 11, deep in the mountains. Rausch Gap stands as a quiet echo of Pennsylvania's railroad age, erased not by government order, but by the shifting tides of industry. Founded in 1828 along the North Lebanon and Pennsylvania Railroad, the town grew around coal and iron, reaching its peak in the 1860s as a bustling repair hub for steam locomotives. But in 1872, when the railroad company realigned its main line to serve richer ore deposits at Pine Grove, the heartbeat of Rausch Gap faltered. The station vanished from timetables, workshops closed, and by the 1880s the company dismantled most of the structures to salvage timber and stone. By 1910, the census recorded no inhabitants. Today, only moss-covered foundations and the Rausch Gap Immigrant Cemetery remain, tucked deep in St. Anthony's wilderness. Weathered gravestones bear names like John Kelly from 1854 to 1880, silent witnesses to a vanished community left behind by market forces and reclaimed by the forest. In the 10th place, Scotia reveals how national priorities can override local fate twice. Founded in the late 19th century as a coal and iron mining outpost, Scotia's fortunes first faded when Andrew Carnegie sold off depleted ore fields. But in 1942, with World War II straining America's steel supply, the War Production Board seized the site under federal emergency powers. The government poured $500,000 into reopening the mine, reviving the massive ore washer, and installing new ventilation systems to meet wartime demand. For 7 years, Scotia operated as a federally controlled resource, its output destined for shipyards and armories. By 1949, with peace restored and richer seams elsewhere, the Army Corps of Engineers transferred the deed back to private hands. The population withered to fewer than 500 by 1960, leaving behind only rusted machinery and concrete foundations in the woods of State Game Lands 176. Scotia stands as a stark reminder of how a community's existence can be dictated by the shifting needs of a nation, then quietly erased when those needs pass. Number 9, Yellow Dog Village reveals how a public health crisis can erase a community almost overnight. Founded in 1910 as a coal camp, the village endured decades of economic decline, but it was not industry collapse that sealed its fate. In 2008, routine water testing detected dangerous levels of E. coli in the community well. The Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection issued an emergency advisory, warning residents that their drinking water posed an immediate threat. Over the next 4 years, families left their homes, some abruptly, leaving belongings behind. By 2012, the last residents had departed under the shadow of a state-ordered well closure. The site was fenced off and marked by official warnings, yet never added to the federal Superfund list. No chemical spill or mine fire forced this exodus, just invisible bacteria and a government mandate that made staying impossible. Yellow Dog Village stands as a silent witness to the power of environmental health to displace, not just disrupt, the lives of those who once called it home. Concrete City stands as a monument to the collision of municipal authority and industrial retreat. Conceived in 1912 as a model community for railroad workers, its 20 poured concrete duplexes were meant to showcase a new vision of affordable, durable housing. But by 1924, township officials demanded a modern sewer system, issuing an ultimatum that would require the company to spend $200,000, an expense far beyond what the owners were willing to pay. Faced with this mandate, residents were relocated and the town was abandoned in 1928, leaving the stark concrete shells behind. The story did not end with abandonment. In 1931, Luzerne County issued a demolition order, hoping to erase the failed experiment entirely. The United States Army Ordnance Corps was called in, and in 1932, engineers packed 100 sticks of dynamite into one of the duplexes. The explosion left little more than surface cracks. Concrete City refused to disappear, its graffiti-covered ruins now standing as silent witnesses to a time when even government orders and military might could not erase a community's physical memory. Number 7. The abandoned Pennsylvania Turnpike reveals how a single policy decision can erase not just a route, but the communities and livelihoods tied to its path. When the Turnpike Commission authorized the 1968 bypass of Sidling Hill and Rays Hill, it marked the end for a 13-mile stretch of America's first superhighway. The state acquired 1,200 acres through eminent domain, with deeds recorded in April 1969. Two massive tunnels, Sidling Hill at 6,522 feet and Rays Hill at 7,039 feet, were sealed and left to darkness, and their traffic noise was replaced by silence. Families along the old alignment were forced to relocate, their homes and businesses made irrelevant overnight. Today, nearly 20,000 visitors each year walk, bike, or simply wander the cracked pavement and echoing tunnels, drawn by the eerie afterlife of engineered ruins. The abandoned turnpike stands as a stark reminder. Progress in infrastructure can mean the quiet disappearance of entire communities, their memory preserved only in the hollowed-out spaces left behind. Number 6. Eckley Miners Village stands as a rare exception, a coal patch town not erased, but preserved as a living archive. Chartered in 1854 by the Eckley Coal and Iron Company, Eckley once echoed with the footsteps of nearly 1,500 miners and their families. As the anthracite seams dwindled and strip mining scarred the hills, the village's future seemed sealed. Yet in the late 1960s, as most patch towns vanished, Eckley's intact 19th century streets and wooden homes caught the eye of Paramount Pictures. The studio chose Eckley as a set for the Molly Maguires, transforming the village into a film backdrop with only minor changes, removing antennas and hiding electric wires. The film's release in 1970 may have faded quickly, but its legacy endured. Public interest spurred the Pennsylvania Historical and Museum Commission to preserve Eckley as a museum, listing it on the National Register of Historic Places in 1971. Today, about 20 descendants still reside among the weathered houses, offering oral histories and guiding visitors through a landscape where memory is not only kept, but actively shared. In a countdown marked by loss, Eckley offers a quiet testament to the power of preservation and the voices of those who refuse to let their community disappear. Number 5. Frick's Lock stands as a quiet casualty of the nuclear age, its fate sealed not by flood or fire, but by the expanding shadow of corporate energy. Nestled along the Schuylkill Canal, since the 1740s, the village thrived through centuries of change. its stone houses and barns bearing witness to revolutionary times. That continuity ended in 1969, when the Philadelphia Electric Company began acquiring every parcel of land to create a regulatory buffer for the Limerick nuclear power plant. Over the next year, company lawyers filed deed after deed, sometimes negotiating, sometimes invoking eminent domain, until every home and outbuilding was in corporate hands. By 1985, the last residents, among them the Elliott sisters whose testimony survives in historical society files, accepted relocation payments and watched their childhood vanish under the looming presence of cooling towers. Today, the original architecture stands boarded and silent, fenced off as a threatened site, its memory preserved only through guided tours and oral histories. Frick's Lock reveals how the logic of safety and expansion can erase a centuries-old community, leaving behind empty streets and stories at risk of fading into silence. Number 4. Alvira stands as a stark reminder of how national security imperatives can erase entire communities and leave behind a hazardous legacy. In March 1942, the War Department issued Order W. 1942-77, seizing more than 8,500 acres of farmland and forests in Union County for the construction of the Middletown Ordnance Works. Nearly 400 residents, some with roots going back generations, were given just 6 weeks to vacate their homes. The government demolished and burned the town to make way for a TNT plant that, in less than a year, produced over 12,000 tons of explosives for the war effort. When the plant shut down, the land was never returned to its original owners, despite promises made at the time of seizure. Instead, 149 concrete bunkers built to store explosives were left scattered across the landscape. Decades later, in 1987, a Department of Energy memorandum surfaced, acknowledging that depleted uranium linked to the Manhattan Project had been stored in those same bunkers, a revelation that added a nuclear shadow to Alvira's story. Today, access remains restricted due to unexploded ordnance and lingering contamination. Alvira's fate exposes the enduring cost of wartime decisions, a landscape marked by secrecy, broken promises, and hazards that outlast generations. Number 3. Livermore stands as a stark example of how federal authority can be erased, not just from the map, but from living memory. Chartered in 1813 along the Conemaugh River, Livermore grew into a coal shipping hub, its population nearing 1,800 by the 1930 census. Everything changed after the catastrophic St. Patrick's Day flood of 1936, when the river swallowed the town beneath 18 feet of water. In response, Congress passed the Flood Control Act of 1936, granting the Army Corps of Engineers sweeping powers to seize land for new reservoirs. The Corps issued an order of possession in 1940, acquiring 2,500 acres and recording deed transfers through 1944. Residents received notices, some compensation, and little recourse as their homes, churches, and businesses were condemned. By 1952, the Conemaugh Reservoir filled, submerging Livermore beneath a permanent lake. To this day, boaters sometimes glimpse the outlines of streets and foundations beneath the water's surface. Compensation disputes linger in county records, but the town itself is gone, physically erased by law, sacrificed in the name of flood control. Livermore's story lays bare the human cost of progress, measured in vanished neighborhoods and the silence that follows. Number 2. The Cornplanter Tract and the Kinzua town stand as a solemn record of treaty betrayal and cultural destruction within United States borders. In 1994, the Treaty of Canandaigua guaranteed the Seneca Nation perpetual ownership of the Cornplanter Tract, a promise written in federal ink, pledging the land would remain theirs as long as the grass shall grow and the waters run. For over a century and a half, Seneca families farmed, worshipped, and buried their dead along the Allegheny River. That legacy ended in 1960, when the United States Army Corps of Engineers issued condemnation letters announcing the construction of the Kinzua Dam. The project would flood more than 10,000 acres, submerging not only the towns of Kinzua and Corydon, but the last remaining tribal land in Pennsylvania. Over 600 Seneca men, women, and children were forced to relocate. Cemeteries were exhumed. Elders watched the Cold Spring Longhouse demolished, and the riverbanks that had anchored generations disappeared beneath the new reservoir. Legal challenges invoking the 1994 treaty reached the Supreme Court, but the federal government pressed forward, justifying the dam under the Flood Control Act. The reservoir earned the bitter nickname Lake Perfidy among the Seneca, a word that speaks to broken promises and irretrievable loss. The story echoed beyond the valley. Johnny Cash recorded the protest song As Long as the Grass Shall Grow, a ballad so pointed in its accusation that regional radio stations refused to play it. For the Seneca, the memory of the Cornplanter Tract's erasure is not just a footnote in local history, but a living wound. It is a reminder that government power can sweep away treaties, communities, and graves in the name of progress, leaving only water and silence where a nation once stood. And finally, in first place, Centralia stands as the most haunting example of a town erased not by flood or decree, but by an unstoppable fire beneath its feet. In 1962, a routine landfill burn ignited an exposed coal seam and set off an underground blaze that would burn for centuries. At first, the danger seemed distant, a faint warmth in the earth and a wisp of smoke curling from a hillside. But as the years passed, the fire spread through abandoned mine tunnels and released carbon monoxide and toxic gases into homes, making basements and backyards perilous. Residents reported headaches, dizziness, and the slow encroachment of invisible poison. By the mid-1970s, federal officials recognized the scale of the disaster. In 1974, Congress authorized $2.5 million for fire containment, but every attempt to smother the flames failed. The fire pressed on, undeterred by slurry trenches or clay barriers. In 1981, the crisis reached national headlines when a 12-year-old boy, Todd Domboski, plunged into a sinkhole 150 feet deep that opened suddenly in his grandmother's backyard. He survived only by grabbing a tree root as hot steam billowed from the earth below, a moment that crystallized the peril for the entire country. Relocation became inevitable. By 1984, Congress had appropriated $42 million to buy out and relocate families, offering compensation for condemned homes and businesses. Demolition crews moved in, tearing down block after block as neighbors said hurried goodbyes. In 1992, Governor Robert P. Casey signed an order condemning the entire borough, stripping Centralia of its legal standing. The United States Postal Service revoked zip code 17927 in 2002, erasing the town from the national address system. Even Route 61, the highway that once carried miners and families through the valley, was forced to close as the pavement buckled and split from the relentless heat below. Today, only a handful of residents remain, protected by a court settlement but surrounded by empty streets, broken sidewalks, and the constant threat of subsurface collapse. Experts estimate the fire will burn for another 250 years, consuming what little remains beneath the surface. Centralia endures as the most iconic symbol of environmental catastrophe and governmental failure in Pennsylvania's history, a place where the promise of prosperity ended in exile and where memory lingers in the smoke that still rises from the earth. Across all 11 erased communities, one pattern emerges. When progress demands sacrifice, entire towns can vanish, sometimes by design, sometimes by neglect. These places aren't just footnotes, they are reminders that history's cost is measured in lost homes, broken promises, and vanished lives. Their ruins endure, challenging us to remember what's been buried beneath the surface. Memory is the only defense against erasure.